Hitting the go live button.
Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me go check on my puppy.
Okay, go check on puppy. But I'm gonna announce the show. That's fine.
Announce the show. I'll be right
back. Okay. You can bring her. He can't hear me.
We can talk about how Rick Grinnell called me creepy.
No, don't ever.
No, we're not going to do that.
Name. No. And we're live. It is Monday, October 11th. We've been live for a minute, so everyone got.
Oh, are you sure we can't talk about creepiness then?
No, stop it. It is Monday, October 11th, 2021. It is 5:01 p.m. Reginald Genius Dwayne Betts is checking on his not so genius puppy, but very cute, quite cute. Highly recommend you follow him on Twitter to see more about his puppy. You will remember Dwayne from being on the show multiple times in the past. Most recently, Where's the Lie, which was an exceptional episode.
It may be the greatest episode of
it was it was truly a great episode. And now he is a MacArthur Genius Award winner, because that's a thing that happens to people that we know, I guess.
And I think he's the second MacArthur Award grantee to be on in Lieu of Fun. Third?
Yeah.
We got Danielle.
Annette Gordon-Reed.
Annette Gordon-Reed, right. So we've got.
That's not even I think that there might be others in there.
So that shows that there's a cause and effect relationship here. You come on in Lieu of Fun, and you get a MacArthur Award.
No, that's only one person that has gotten it after coming on in Lieu of Fun. Oh, okay, all right.
No, I'm not talking about the sequence. There are 3 people who have come on in Lieu of Fun and gotten MacArthur Awards.
Yes. That's Where's the Lie? Anyways, we're not allowed to have fun anymore. We're not allowed to have our genius that we've booked for today. Well, we are, but in a second.
He'll show up at some point.
Yeah, he's checking on puppy, but and until then, Ben. There he is.
There he is.
My puppy.
How's the puppy?
What's up?
She just was lonely, which is not really true because my wife didn't work today. But 10 minutes by herself, and she's like, "Where you at?" So I had to tell I'm here. Now she's good.
Yeah, I understand. Ben's dogs come in and say hello in the same manner. Nina comes and quietly bumps my knee with her cold, wet nose in the middle of the show.
I don't know why
just letting me know she's there.
When you get a MacArthur Award, when do you find out? They release the list, but how long before that do you know?
This part is complicated because I've told a lot of people that I found out when they found out, which frankly isn't true at all. But it's nice because everybody's like, I can't believe you didn't tell me. But they tell you a week or so before, a bit before, long enough before to know if you're going to be can you not testify? Can you keep a secret? And I think it becomes a crucial question.
And so do you know, you're famously not supposed to know that you're under consideration, but I have, I'll just disclose this. I have personally alerted people that they are under consideration because, people ask me for my assessment of somebody and I immediately call them and say, hey, the MacArthur committee just called me and asked me for my assessment of you. Did anybody give you a heads up from whoever they were?
Why would he say that? He can't say that. I feel like.
Yes, I know.
but why would he narc on his people? That is a terrible thing.
But no, I actually think that because I've done that too. They've asked me to write about people, but it's been a really strange situation because I've never been asked to write about a poet, and I've been asked to write about people a few times, and so it's a weird thing when you ask it. It's like 6 degrees of separation. You think, man, they asked me to write about somebody. Maybe they asked somebody to write about me, and then you're like, how come ain't nobody told me that they asked them to write about me? how come how come somebody didn't say, well, your last book was okay, but if you did a little bit better next time, when these people ask me to write about you, I might have something thoughtful to say. So I think that the people, so it's interesting because I don't know, like they didn't ask me to write about poets, even though poets are one who I've known, right? And contemporary writer. They've asked me to write about some people who won, some people didn't win, whatever. A lot of lawyers and stuff though, and so it's kind of interesting because I don't even know who they asked to write about me. And I don't know if the person they asked, like, I don't know how I fit into that idea to work. So,
I mean, I think that there's like, I think it's great. Like, I just want to say that, like, I think it's kind of lovely that you don't know that you're up for consideration. I think that you get to I think it's great that, like, and as far as I know, that you were tweeting about Puppy, like, alongside everything else that you were doing, and you continue to tweet about Puppy, alongside everything else that you're doing, while knowing that you're up for this. I mean, I'm sure you curb yourself or change yourself a little bit, but like,
I legit didn't know. No, I legit didn't know I was up for it. Like nobody told. Like no, I know that if somebody would have told me this year, then I think I would have been just like perseverating over it. And the other thing about it is I do think that maybe the reason why I've never told anybody is because I don't want them to. It feels weird because then they're like, well, what did you say about me? And it's your fault I didn't get it. So I think when they called me, they was like, I'm telling you, man, they called me like the police. Well, they called me like the mafia. I don't know. They was like, are you first of all, everybody says that they don't talk to the police, and everybody does. And this is I realized, like, people just do what other people say because humans as a species are like really, really trusting, and I think that's how we survive. But I also think that it's kind of like oxymoronic in a way, because they called me and they said, are you alone? And my first response should have been, unknown phone number, are you alone?
I literally would freak out. Like, I'm like, I have been offered the MacArthur grant like 15 different times, but it got flagged as potential spam, and so they never got in touch with me.
No, so then I said, but look, I say, yeah, I'm alone, and they said, is anybody in the house with you? It's like, that's some extra shit, I'm already alone. My house ain't even big. I'm already alone, and I said, well, my son's out here, and they was like, can you close? And they was like, where are you?
Did they ask what you were wearing?
Right. And they said, will you close your door? Mind you, per cell phone technology, nobody could hear what the people on the other side are saying to me. And I was like, but listen, I'm like, sure, I closed the door. And they're like, we're calling to tell you. And then the voice gets like low. We're calling to tell you, you want to MacArthur grant. I just started laughing. I was like, and they was like, I'm laughing.
Well, now that you told me how the phone call starts, I'm gonna do that to Ben every other Thursday.
It's not gonna work because I know that
Scott's
I will
not
never
listening.
get.
I'm gonna do it to Scott.
We should do it to Scott.
So hold on, Dwayne.
Actually, I think it's cool though. Somebody in the chat said it's irresponsible to do it that way. I actually think
no, it's kind of cool.
And it's so funny because even if like, and I know other people, they actually. Other people tell the story, and since they asked so many people in print, where were you? I think it's like a known thing. But even though it's a known thing, like nobody cares about that shit. So everybody who's listening to this will forget a year from now. And they'll be like, that's how they told you? And they'll forget that I told you that's how they told me. Or if somebody that's listening gets it, because, being on a show leads to this kind of thing. So if another guest gets it, they would have completely forgot that they heard me tell this story. It's just like if somebody's on this show and they in a bathroom in Martha's Vineyard, and an old dude comes in and says, "Will you cut my hair?" They won't remember me. And then they found out it's Bobby Brown's father's hair. He just goes to the bathroom in Martha's Vineyard, once a summer.
I gotta say, I promise you, if I am ever in a bathroom in Martha's Vineyard and Bobby Brown's father comes in and asks me to cut his hair, I will know it is a setup by you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just telling you, there are a lot of things you can fool me with, but that one isn't one of them.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I mean, like, so I think that what's funny also to me is just that there is this idea that you're right, that like, oh, actually, you want to know, this is actually funny. It just reminded me, there was this time when I was in college, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, Dwayne, but I used to be a huge baseball nerd and like fan, like huge, like wrote a weekly column in the Brown Daily Herald about like baseball and the Red Sox. And I was interviewing for a job with Theo Epstein as an intern for the Red Sox for like the summer. And I was so excited. And I told everyone that I was doing this. And one of like my guy friends left me a voicemail message. I'll never forget it. Like on my flip phone, it was like, "Hey, this is Theo Epstein. I'm calling." Sorry, he's the manager of the Red Sox. That's why this was a big deal at the time. And he was like, "This is Theo Epstein."
Thank you, but I knew who Theo Epstein was.
I didn't.
Well, Ben didn't. I could tell
joking.
from his face. That wasn't. For
I was
you,
like, did he
Dwayne.
play? I was like, what did he do? I actually was like, oh damn, that's the dude that wrote Moneyball.
No, that's Michael Lewis. But close. No, Theo Epstein read Moneyball and then used it to make a multi-million dollar franchise, a multi-million dollar franchise in World.
I think the most important thing is he did it to win a World Series and break the curse. But I love that you think that the money is the most important thing.
Of course, that's what I mean. Like, okay, well, also that break the curse. There was that. I mean, wow, aren't you the romantic? But anyways, especially about the Red Sox, which is like a very non-romantic team, is like a Black American to be like romantic about.
This fool pitched with a bloody sock. I'm just saying.
Kurt Schilling? Are you fucking kidding me? It wasn't Pedro. It was Kurt Schilling.
I know, but you talk about baseball.
Sucked. He went on to like campaign for Trump.
I understand, but Kurt Schilling is one of those things that make you realize that like people have to be more than the worst shit that they do, even if the worst. He has odious political opinions, but he pitched with a bloody sock. And I know right now people in Phoenix, Bush,
Ben has no idea.
Chris Paul has some Kurt Schilling.
I'm following because I actually know who Kurt Schilling is, and
he was at the time a pitcher for the Red Sox. Past his prime, they shot him full of cortisoid. It bled onto his sock. They zoomed in on it while he was relief pitching. It was in the 2004 series when they won the World Series, and it became this legend. Was it 2004? It was 2004. It might have been 2003, but I'm pretty sure it was 2004.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong. I'm pretty sure it was like 2011.
Was it 2? No.
Yeah.
No. It was
yes,
not
it was.
2011.
I just want to say, when Kurt Schilling goes to Trump rallies and shit, no one shouts at him, "Shut up and pitch."
That's true. Really? Wait, who doesn't yell at that? Kurt Schilling?
Nobody yells at Kurt Schilling, "Shut up and pitch."
Ben did not, but
see, that's wisdom. From somebody who's not into sports.
I'm completely right, by the way. It was the 2004 Game 6 of the ALCS.
For real?
It was. Maybe they showed baseball in prison, Dwayne. But like, there's like...
I'm so mad I just tried to tell you when that happened. And man, how do I even know about this if I hadn't?
Because it was actually even more specific. This was pre-Trump, and I remember that he was pro-George Bush, and it was the Kerry election. It was Kerry versus Bush. So
all right, so here's what I want to know. How does the MacArthur Award, this is actually a serious question, affect your Books in Prison project?
Yeah.
In a real way, I had a funders briefing. I'm right after.
No, of course you have a funders briefing. Yeah.
But the thing is that it was already planned, and the project is like, it's like, how do you fit this project into your landscape of things of value? And it's even really easier to fit a project that's around changing policy. It's easier to communicate why that matters. I think it's harder to communicate why this matters. And I already had a funders briefing plan, and winning the MacArthur and being able to discuss the project in the context of the MacArthur, I think meant people had to take it seriously in a different way. And it's not that people weren't already taking it seriously, but it is that and I'm asking for $30 million. Let's just be clear, right? Just in case somebody listening has a spare $30 million and they want to give them. But then if you say, well, how does that math work out? But it's roughly $25,000 per Freedom Library. And the Freedom Library isn't just the books. The books themselves cost like $8,500. It's just 500 books. But that's the cost of books. And even when you factor in a discount, you're still talking about $5,000-$6,000 for the books. But then the structures are these like beautiful handmade bookshelves. And you say, well, why make it beautiful? Why make it handmade? I mean, one of the reasons is that there really isn't much of beauty in prison. But the other reason is that you got to make it so that it'll last. You know, most of us have bookshelves that can necessarily be cheap because they aren't going into secure institutions and you don't have the same security risk. But the other part of it is part of the project is to also create a fellows program where we'll hire people who are formerly incarcerated to build the bookshelves and to work with trained woodworkers and to learn this craft, right? And also because it takes so long to build them, even if they sell it to us at cost and at materials, they don't have the time within their own business plan to just focus on something like this. So we're going to be engaging with, right now we engage with 3 fabricators. And ultimately by the time it's said and done, we probably engage with 20, 30 fabricators. And part of the story is to make people more aware of what it means to be in prison, have more of a hand in understanding what prison looks like and transforming it. And they're modular. And you could, once you destroy the prison, you could take the bookshelves out before you destroy it. I had one in my office, but I took it on the road, and so now my stage manager has it. But it is really beautiful though, and like you could turn it, and the books on both sides, and it really does transform a space. And so winning the MacArthur meant that I could have this conversation about a project like this, and they say, well, what is $30 million? And I say, well, and first of all, you know, it's like 3,800 state prisons and juvenile detention centers in this country. We're talking about building 1,000 freedom libraries. If you put one freedom library in every prison, all you're doing is creating the same kind of inequity that already exists, because libraries are typically located outside of the housing unit. Right now, because of COVID, people haven't been in the house outside of the housing unit. And since COVID began, no schools, no programming, no visits. So we were building these on the housing units at first anyway, because there's already so many competing interests in your time. And because of the library space, you only have 20 or so people there at a time. So a prison with 800 people, it's just not a real chance for everybody to go there and actually browse the stacks. And I'm gonna tell you a story that sounds like some bullshit later, but the point is that we're building these on the housing unit. So the $30 million allows us to build like 1,000 freedom libraries. And then you say, well, isn't that enough? I mean, that's just a drop in the bucket. You know, 1,000 freedom libraries, when you talk about 3,800 prisons, and you know you can't just put one freedom library in every prison, because it's roughly between 6 and 10 housing units in every prison, and you want to put them on the housing units. 1,000 freedom libraries covers like 250 prisons. And so then when you think about it as a national project, $30 million is really nothing. You know, $30 million ends up being $100,000 or so, you know, per prison, 4 prisons per state. And that's how you get to 250. But what MacArthur meant is when I went into the room to have this conversation, you know, I could have this conversation and not really feel like, and feel more aggressively right about the significance of the project and about what the project is aiming to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, go ahead, Kate.
I was just gonna say that, like, I think that there is something to what you're saying, which is like, if you, and I think this is like the big, like maybe the bigger thing that like people don't understand about the MacArthur. That's not just like, it is a giant pile of money, but when you're trying to raise a lot more money, what it is a grant of kind of legitimacy that some really serious folks trust you. Or no, you're disagreeing?
Yeah. But no, I'm going to say the MacArthur is a giant pile of money, but I don't want to. I owe $300,000 in student loans.
Yeah,
so
I understand.
I want to, you know, and I haven't had a job. The money from Mellon gave me a job that provides me health insurance, and that's the first time I had a job with health insurance since my first year out of prison. So I think, you know, we think about it. It is a lot of money, but in some sense, it's just like having a job for 5 years. And being allowed to do some things that I want to do. And I'm not trying to like diminish the amount of money it is, but I do feel like I always need to remind people that I owe $300,000 in student loans, and that the education was valuable and it was important, and it was the only way that got me to the point that I could even imagine doing this work. But we should be real about what the cost of education in America is and what the cost of an elite education in America for somebody that has kids and no trust fund and no family support.
So, I mean, I take it the most important value of the MacArthur grant, not to you, but to the project, is just that it gets you a whole lot of reputational backing and cachet, and it's the MacArthur Foundation saying, "Hey, this guy and his work is super legit and is one of the things we want to single out this year." That's got to open doors, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a nod to even like Yale Law School. I mean, everybody, even you guys, if you're like, let's just do it. We can give him a scholarship for it, you know what I mean? Or what is it? You give him an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. Or in lieu of fun. Why is he talking? And he's been on here for 3 times. Why is he up here? Like I think one of the things that MacArthur does is help legitimize the decisions that a bunch of people made before the MacArthur happened. And in some contexts, it's like, oh, it didn't matter.
And if you hadn't gotten it, we would have like really questioned our decision to have you on.
I know.
It's like we were sitting there, and Kate was saying, I'd love to have Dwayne back on, but he doesn't have any real external validation from the MacArthur Foundation. And then the award came in, and it was fine.
No, but I'm serious. But Dwayne makes a great point. I think that this is and I think it's wonderful. I don't know. I think that that's right. It's not just it's your decision about where you spend your time and who you like talking to and who you think that it's worth talking, the conversations that are worth happening. And I have to be honest, and Ben, you have to feel this way too. There's so many opportunities to waste your time once you get to a certain point, and so many.
And I'm availing myself of every single one of them.
Yeah.
One by one, I've got a list, and I'm checking up. I've learned to play video games. I never did that before. I'm going down that list one by one.
But I really do.
I really don't understand how you just learned how to play video games recently.
Don't ask.
What's that?
It involves Oculus. Don't ask. Don't.
Oh no! It's a long story. It's you'd think I was doing Where's the Lie?
Yeah.
Oculus is a legit hustle. We used it 3 times, and then it's been collecting dust.
No, dude, that is every toy that you ever buy for your kid. Most toys. I mean, literally the only reason that puppies don't gather dust is they move around too fast. So there is
they demand
that you pay. If an Oculus barked at you every 10 minutes, you would play it more. Trust me. So but that being said, I think that there is I think that this is a great point. I think it is great. I think that you've made a lot of great decisions. It's fantastic. And can I ask selfishly, I know you've done the Million Book Project and all of and that you're focusing on that and have been focusing on that. But can we talk about your writing and does you have been, so you're a contributing editor at the New York Times on their poetry section, and I don't know what that pays. And you wrote a book of poetry. I know that's I didn't want to say that, but thank you.
No, it pays. It's a couple $100. It's fun though. It's more of a the poetry thing is more of a labor of love, and it's kind of nice because I get to introduce people to poems every week. That's pretty cool.
And but I was kind of I know, then that's kind of great. I'm but I love that. And so what do you are you going to start writing?
I got a solo show.
Do you think this will give you the room a little bit?
I write all the time. I got a solo show that's going to be on Broadway one day. It's definitely going to be off Broadway, I think. I don't know if I can say definitely, but
there's only on and off Broadway, Dwayne, so it's got to be one of them.
That's actually true. Well, I know. I did it. It's funny. I'm doing it at University of Notre Dame in November. This is just warm up because I've never really memorized anything in my life before this. But it's a 80-minute show, and and it's kind of interesting, and it's and then the show serves as the outline for my next memoir, because the show is like I did this solo show because a lot of people don't read poetry, and they sort of be like, they think that they don't get it. And I think the reason why they think they don't get it is like the vacuum in which they hear it in, and it's like, you got to give them a different set. And when you got to pick up a book and read from a book, a person doesn't really, they just think it's different. And so I was like, what if I create a solo show that's built around the poems and also has these stories in it? It has an arc and sort of tells a story, and it's about me mostly, and so I did that, and that's writing, and I think I had to craft that, and that's what I did during the pandemic, and it was actually cool. I remember I've been doing it on Zoom, so I just did it I gave a Loeb lecture, and I gave it I gave him an excerpt of my show as the Loeb lecture, but I also included the one of the modules in the Freedom Library, and I showed it to him, and that's a part of the stage. And then in the Q&A, I showed it to him, and it was kind of interesting because all of those things sort of connect. And then I'm working on another memoir, and then I'm working on this piece about prosecutors that I'm trying to sort of write, but it's like interesting because I got to find the time to write it.
Like, when you put together, do you like? I'm curious, like, when you're putting together the show for Notre Dame, your off on Broadway show. I'm not mocking you. I'm just mocking like
this is off and on Broadway.
Yeah,
this is
like
off,
New
off
Haven.
Broadway.
This is like New Haven. This is like, or
no,
like
New Haven. No, man, New Haven is a vibrant, dope, artistic.
I know it actually would be pretty cool if you like launched it in New Haven. But I was just gonna say that, like, but my bigger question is like you have a lot of intuition about public speaking, and you have like obviously great stories. But like I asked you last time when you told Where's the Lie, like if you had a background in like doing the Moth or other types of things, are there like how are you prepping for this? Or are you just going to prep it? Like, who are you running it by? Like, I don't really know how to produce a show. I'm just genuinely asking if you were going to like kind of come up with a thing that threaded a bunch of your poems together.
So what I did was I did a show. So my first sort of like reading of the whole thing, it was horrible back then too. It was like 90 minutes long. It was super bloated. I read it. I did it on Zoom to like Elizabeth Alex. I'm just gonna feel like I'm name dropping, so I'm gonna stop. But it was a bunch of people who watched it who were supportive of some of my work in the past. And then also it was this woman named Jane Cox who runs the Lewis Center at Princeton, and she's a great lighting designer. And it was some people who at the Yale rep here in New Haven. And Jane was like, yo, this is great. Yo, you should come down to Princeton and workshop it for the summer. I was like, I don't even know what that means. So I came down to Princeton, and she did all of the lights for the show, right? The lighting
You're muted,
design.
Ben.
In Princeton, did you cut anybody's hair in the bathroom?
I know. No, they was COVID, man. They didn't even. I had to have a special badge to like get into the building. But we did it there. I spent the week there. It was glorious in a way. I was like from 10 to 6 p.m. every day. On my feet, going over lines, thinking about. We had a elaborate set design. And they got a theater with like 40-foot walls. It was great. And then like the CBS, and then what happened is some people came and they videotaped us doing it. And then I did the whole thing. I did the whole thing on Saturday morning. And so yeah, that's what it looks like. And then you move from there to other spaces. Since I'm not an actor, so I moved to other spaces. It's primarily I'm gonna get my chops by taking it to prisons and doing a tour of 60 prisons across 20 states and letting them see it as a kind of first audience. On Thursday, I was supposed to be in Virginia, doing it in a prison in Virginia, but they had a COVID outbreak. And so they had to cancel the visitation. They were supposed to open up visits this past weekend. Today, they're supposed to open up visits. And I was supposed to be on Thursday, but they had to shut all of that down because of a COVID outbreak. But so the point is that I'm going to do it in prisons first to sort of build up my chops, get good. And then I'll do it. I got a few spots that I'm going to do it here in Yale. And then we'll see what happens. But
do you want to do it in lieu of fun?
I would do it for you guys. I do an excerpt for you guys.
We could do it. We could do it.
Fun. I think
we could do a rare one where we actually charge for entry, and we could do it as a fundraiser for the project.
I'm 100% down. Like this is my set, and I won't talk too much about like what This was created by a Japanese artist though named Kyoko Ibe, but and it's prison paper, with her artistic style. She like floats different things into the paper. Um, but I won't even talk too much about it since we're gonna do it here as a fundraiser. I mean, I think that people will love it, and it all started on Zoom. I use a different camera that's better. But what's fascinating for me is like, between when I started doing it on Zoom and today, I got 5 friends out of prison, and part of that is the story that is told through the show.
So tell us about the 5 friends out of prison. That's a kind of a big day.
Yeah, I've seen you, but have you been like announcing these kind of like on Twitter, kind of low key? And I think that they're not so low key.
I mean, one of my guys. So basically, what happened is, I had a friend who, when I was in law school, he wrote me a letter, and he was like, basically it was like Shawshank Redemption, where you meet the person who did the crime, and he tells me, and the guy wrote an affidavit saying he did it. I still couldn't get anybody to represent him. But then journalists, and this is why journalism is important. A journalist wrote a long form piece, about 4,000 words, about the case, and he did more details, and he had more than just the affidavit. He had facts, and so then the lawyer took the case, but still nothing was moving. Failed Habe after Habe after Habe, and this sounds like some bullshit, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. I'm in here, and we working on this show, and I had a line in the show that says, "I told them fools, it don't matter, ain't nothing to resurrect after prison." And it was a line in the play after telling my friend's story, and I was like, "That's bullshit." And I told my director, I was like, "Yo, I don't even like that. Like, I feel like I'm predicting that he's gonna die in prison." And what happened is, one of the last trips I took in February before the pandemic was to go to UVA and give a keynote speech there, but also to meet the chair of the parole board and talk about 2 of my friends. And so I said this on the phone, on a call in June of 2019, and on July 4th, I get a phone on July 3rd. I get a phone call from somebody that was involved with the parole board, and was like, "Yo, he got his pardon." And he came home the next day, and so it's kind of interesting, like that. I was like, "Yo, I don't like how this story's coming out in my play. I'm gonna change it." And then he gets a pardon, and then the other friend that I was representing him on parole. He got a pardon. Another guy I was representing got a pardon. And then on September 14th, somebody else I know who I represented on parole got a pardon. But all that is great. But then like 2 days ago, somebody I represented last Thursday, I got the phone call and he got parole denied. And it's fucked up because, this guy,
Are these all in Virginia?
He's all in Virginia. Yeah. And what happened was, so in Virginia, they got rid of parole in like 1994. And they just brought parole back. So these guys had 30, 40 years, never expected to get out. And then they brought parole back for people who got locked up as juveniles. And most of my guys got locked up as juveniles. And so, so one of the guys, one got a pardon. One I represented, he got out on September 14th. And then 2 others, they was under the old law. They did more than 25 years and they both got out on parole. And then, the guy that I just represented, though, he had a hard life, man. He had a brain tumor and like flatlined doing surgery, and they brought him back. And I represented him, and they denied him parole. And they were like, you haven't done programs or some shit like that. And I was like, dude, he had 95 years. They wasn't giving him access to any programs. I mean, I think that we should all just be happy that he was able to do his time, expecting to die in prison and never hurt anybody. I'm like, at what point, I think it's good enough. If you do 20 years in prison and you don't hurt anybody, despite expecting to die in prison, and you nearly die in prison I think it's good enough. And so it's so anyway, that's but that's like the work that I've been doing adjacent to like the solo show and the Freedom Reads. But in some ways, like the solo show and Freedom Reads made it more pressing to do that work. And that's some of the stuff I talk about, in the show. And a few people, like, when you say few people seen it, I've done excerpts of it in a lot of different places, but in terms of seeing the whole show, you just got a handful of people who've seen the whole show. And I think it's, I'm biased, but I actually think it's pretty fantastic. The whole thing runs like, I guess like 80 minutes, but I could do an excerpt. I could do the whole thing. It's whatever the audience, if we want to
do the whole thing, we'll set it up as a fundraiser, and we'll this audience will promote the shit out of it, and we'll have some fun and raise some money.
Cool. All right, we're gonna rock this joint. It's good too. I mean, I've been saying it's good. Now I'm like, oh shit, they gonna see it. It better be good.
Yeah, this is the power of deadlines, Dwayne.
And we'll get
You're
the
like, oh
MacArthur
man.
Foundation to tweet it, and
Yeah, and they will.
and then everybody who wants a MacArthur grant will
Right.
sign up because they're gonna think you're gonna give them
I
the
have-
the secret.
Scoop. Yeah. It's so
have to
good though, because
ask,
MacArthur doesn't
have
even
people-
know this shit exists. That's the
Here's
other
how
great thing.
here's how you do it.
But the other great thing about the MacArthur joint is that, like, I feel like it could be a lot of pressure on what you do afterwards. But like, I already been working on this, and I've been working on it enough where like I memorized 80 minutes worth of material, and so I feel like it's kind of perfect because I'm in the middle of Freedom Reads. I'm in the middle of the solo show, and so I'm not having a like an artistic or intellectual crisis, wondering if I'm worthy. I'm dealing with anxiety about wondering if I could accomplish the shit I'm already doing. So much so that like I just take the MacArthur thing as like, okay, cool, this should like help some of this other work, but I don't question myself because I'm just too anxious about this other shit to question myself.
I just want to say, Mateo, in the audience, I don't think OnlyFans is the right platform for this material. I'm just saying, I love the thought,
Stop
but
engaging the children in like this. Like, I feel like we're gonna end up into another conversation about feet, and I don't want that conversation to happen. I know you do, Ben, but like I do not.
I'm not going there.
Good.
All right.
So wait, can I actually ask? One of the things that I've always found really interesting is like I think that like people, whenever there's some type of grant of, I don't know how many people understand how much money, well, like as you said, it's not that much money comparatively, but like the money that is associated with these awards. Have you gotten just like completely, I'm always just curious, have you gotten like hit up by like just like strangers in your inbox, or has it been like okay?
I was walking down the street with my puppy, right? And I'm on the phone because sometimes I talk to friends while I walk puppy. And somebody
I know
said,
most, yes. I've
somebody
been
said,
one of those friends.
Congratulations on that grant you got. And my man was like, who was that? I was like, oh, it's just my neighbor. And then somebody was like, hey, Dwayne, congratulations, I heard. And he was like, yo, you safe out there? like, why all these people congratulate you, you know? It was like, and so it was kind of funny because it was like, it was like, I could have, where I grew up at, I didn't know what this shit was before. It's interesting. I think certain fields, like, so writers, even though it's not a lot of poets who get it or whatever, it's always like one every other year or something. So you kind of know that it exists because it's like people that because the poetry world is really small. I told my mom, and my mom was like, boy, why are you always lying? I told her how much money it was. And she was like, she was like, I love you, but stop. This is just like a bridge too far. And I was like, nah, look it up. And she was like, don't tell anybody how much money this is. So yeah, but I mean, but I think I actually still think like my folks, they're not gonna watch the show. You know what I mean? And it just is what it is. It's like how do you deal with the way in which you got like interest and passions and obsessions that sort of differ from people you love. And I was trying to tell my mom was like, my mom was telling me, she was like, I mean, people think you strange. And she wasn't saying it in a bad way, but she was just like, who cares about a class action lawsuit? You know what I mean? She was just like, you talk about, I had been pentameter at the cookout. It's not, making people, want to talk to you. And so the space of things I love that overlap with this audience doesn't necessarily overlap with my kin. And so they probably ain't even, they ain't even read the Washington Post that was like, 25 people won, and then they skipped like 25 people. Shit, I don't know one of them. They didn't even read the story, so I haven't had that issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's something to be said for, I get that. Like, I just like people just don't understand. Like, plenty of people don't know what a MacArthur Award is. It is kind of a thing like that is. Haven't you also won a Guggenheim?
Please. You trying to get me robbed out here.
Sorry. Oh my. Shh. Sorry. Never mind. This is his first major award. You don't understand. Have you ever watched A Christmas Story?
Yeah. You talking about the Scrooge joint?
Like this. No. Okay. Yes, that is a Christmas story. What is the one about the? Why am I asking Ben like he knows because he's Jewish? What is the one? No, there is like the one with the family in the Midwest that is like.
Oh yeah. When it's like it was like you're gonna shoot your eye out.
Yes.
Yeah. I watched that.
So there is like
Ben has seen that. It's
yeah.
What is it called? A Christmas Tale.
Yes, a Christmas. Yeah, it is Christmas story. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Everybody's seen it.
Yeah, and because they play it on repeat on TNT for like all of Christmas.
That
but
movie's
anyways,
been out since the 70s.
No, it really hasn't. It's from the 90s, but it like basically like makes it look like
Ralphie. Yeah, he put his tongue on the pole.
Yeah. Stupid. So, but like my point is like there's this like so like I feel like this is your major award moment. Except it's much more attractive than like a lamp, like
that
a lamp of a lady's leg.
You gotta take us back to OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly. It's a major award. Fragile. Like, sorry, it's like it says fragile. Like,
so, have you seen the movie?
Ben.
So the father gets this major award, right?
It's
and he's
not
all
a major
excited
award.
about it, right? And it becomes a woman's leg. Like
it's
from
not
like
becomes the award is
the
a
award
woman's
is
leg in fishnet stockings. That's all it is.
Yeah.
With like a big, like gaudy, like lampshade with like
and the wife hated the joint, you know what I mean? And
broke it.
Yeah, and she broke it.
Yeah. So, all right.
Anyways, yeah. So this is the joke, but like he won't turn it off. But it's so sexy that the entire neighborhood he puts in the front window because it's his major award, and the entire neighborhood. It's like a foot fetish thing, Ben. We always come back to this.
See,
and like
you keep coming back to it and then saying that I'm coming back to it. I haven't mentioned a foot today.
Classic misdirection. You mentioned Rick Gannell. That's like the same thing. But there's I was just going to say this. Everyone.
This is like, as a poet though, this is the thing. Like as a poet, you think about how can you make an illusion that like matters to like the contemporary moment. And like that's an illusion that you could see that like everybody in the chat.
We call that a meme here.
Yeah. Well,
all right, let's go to Mr. Wattenbarger.
Hello. Hi, friend.
Oh, there we are.
No,
Hello.
You're totally fine. Please ask your question.
I will ask my question. Dwayne, this is kind of a Terry Gross-like question. I don't know if I should apologize for that or not, but anyway, maybe that's a good thing. So when you were released from prison, you could have watched it fade into the distance in your rearview mirror, but you haven't. And so I'm curious, what is the experience like for you now when you visit a prison? And is it ever routine, or is it something that you just never get used to?
So this is funny. You would think people would think you planted this question, but 2 points. One, I don't know. Some people do watch it fade. They let it fade into the distance, but I wonder about the kind of psychic, the kind of thing that they could do to block it off. It's like a sort of a trauma that like you sort of block off and put in a room inside your brain and decide not to talk about it. And I guess I could have done that, but I entered into college and all of these spaces. Like most of the spaces in the country consistently ask you about it, whether you're trying to get a job, whether you're trying to get into college. It's part of your past. It was like 8 years. How do I talk to the woman or the man, whoever I'm trying to date? Like, how do I talk to them about my past? It's sort of like, I don't know if it was actually possible to block it off. So that's the first point. But the second point is some of the stuff I've done has been choice. But it's interesting. I was just in a prison to visit somebody. I was visiting John Lennon because I'm helping him with his clemency petition. And John J. Lennon is a writer. He's locked up in upstate New York. And it's wild because it's the first time that I go to see him. And it's the first time that I've been inside a prison to visit somebody in a while. You know, I've been in a lot of prisons, and going as a guest is very different from going to visit somebody. Because even when you go as a guest, you got people escorting you and they like, yo, this dude, who is that? And it's like, yeah, motherfucker, that's who I am. You know, you kind of got that feel of not being diminished by walking through the door. But when you go to visit somebody, you know that you could get denied. And you're constantly thinking like, can I have cash? Can I have a credit card? Where am I going to put my phone? And so you go through already slightly diminished. You walk through the metal detectors, but this shit is crazy. I go to the prison to see him, and once I get through the first gate and I'm walking on the pathway to the next set of doors, I walk past 2 rhododendrons, and they're blossoming and they're fuchsia. and it fucks me up because I did 8.5 years in prison and I never saw a flower. And I realized that the people who locked up, although this beauty is right outside of the prison gates, they'll never see it because this is the door that they'll only walk through if they're going home. Go in the visiting room, go in the locked small room. I talked to John, and you gotta understand, I mean, he was saying some shit that kind of fucked me up because he was like, "But Dwayne, you don't get it. Like, I hate when people tell me that I don't get shit. First of all, right? But he's like, you don't get it because like you done made it, and I'm in here, and I feel like I'm publishing at some of the places that's the height of what you want to do as a journalist. He's publishing in the New York Times magazine and Esquire. Like he's kind of doing his thing in the Washington Post. He don't want a National Magazine Award. He like people look at me like I ain't shit every day, and so that's one thing that I'm cognizant of. But then he leaves, and I leave out, and I gotta wait for escort. Fuck you mean I gotta wait for escort? I want to leave now, and I can't complain. I can't. I just gotta wait for somebody to come, and then I start listening to other people's conversation. And I can't help it. I'm smelling the popcorn. I'm smelling like the cheeseburgers and everything that you smell in the visiting room. I'm just reminded of what it meant to go see somebody. And this dude is writing a poem out. Well, actually, he's writing, and I'm like, why the fuck are you writing when there's somebody in front of you? Why are you not talking to your loved one? And then he was like, how do you spell the word sacred? Which fucked me up because how do you spell the word sacred in prison? And she tells him, and then like a minute or two later, he spits this poem to her, and she's like, yo, you like Langston Hughes. And I'm smiling because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and then she's like James Baldwin or something, and they talking, and she's like, I got into literature when I was in college, Russian literature and Japanese literature. I'm like, what? She like Tolstoy, and they're talking books, and then they talk about like they talking about doing things together to sort of build a bond. They be like, we should have a movie night. A movie night. She's like, yeah, we watch the same movie and then we talk about it. And I was thinking about Asha Bandele's The Prisoner's Wife and how I read it when I was in prison in solitary confinement. And it made me think that like this woman that loved me would love me a little bit more. You know what I mean? I sent the shit to her, like, you got to read this. Shit did not work out. She did not propose to me. She did not accept my wedding proposal or none of that shit. But whatever. And then it was like, and we should start a book club and we read the same books. And she was running off books. And she was like Tolstoy and War and Peace and Anna Karenina. And she was like, I like to read stuff that's different from where I am. And I was like, ain't none of that shit different from where you are, And then what fucks me up is he says, yeah, I want to pick the book. And she said, well, how you going to find a book? Because they've been on lockdown basically for the past 2 years. And the library is hard to get to. And I immediately thought, if it was a Freedom Library there, he would have left that visiting room and went and picked up Warren. He would have went and picked up like Crime and Punishment. He would have went and picked up, he'd have went and asked the person who's working in the library, yo, y'all got the Russians here? And the dude would have been like, yeah, we got Chekhov, we got Tolstoy, we got Anna Karenina, what you need? And then he'd be like, well, I got this lady, man, and we got this book club we trying to start. What should I use? And he would have picked up a book. But what I was reminded of, and this was just last Friday, what I was reminded of is like, the worst part about prison is you lose control over everything. And shit is crazy. I had somebody who drove me up there. And so after the visit was over, I told him to pick me up at 3. I got out at like 2:45 and he wasn't there. And I was like, damn, where's his car? And like 10 minutes passed. And I was like, where's this motherfucker at? I ain't have my phone, I ain't have my keys. I was like, damn, he just left me here. I'm looking around, it's just like, it's in the middle of nowhere. And anyway, after about 25 minutes, I asked the CO, I was like, yo, y'all got a phone in there? He's like, we got a pay phone. And I was like, fuck is you gonna do with a pay phone? I happen to have some quarters. Y'all know pay phones cost $1 now. I go in there, I put $1 and I call my wife. She look at the number like, who the fuck is this? Don't answer the phone. I call immediately back and she was like, oh, this must be somebody, and she answers. And I'm like, oh, and I guess I sounded stressed. And my son was like, you all right? And in my head, I'm like, I'm fucking trapped in prison. My ride is gone. I had to go into prison for help. Like, what does this look like? And then she called the dude on 3 and he was like, oh, I'm right in the parking lot. I'll come get you. And he called me Mr. Betts. And I was like, he must don't hear the anxiety in my voice. And so to answer your question, it's a mix of a lot of things. It's a mix of like, After the other night I put on Twitter, I was like, "What language do you dream in?" And I dream in the language of prisons.
Jesus Christ, Dwayne.
But
How
bet
do
that
you-
was more of an answer than you were
Yeah, I know.
expecting.
Yeah, I know.
A great answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard. It's a great
You're welcome.
question. Yeah, no, I wonder this. Like, you said that you got like a weird phone call from someone being like, "Are you alone?" or you whatever. Like, if you've had a little bit of trauma in your voice or you've had some type of loss, like a weird phone call is very like I don't know. Like, I'm just like,
I'm probably
right?
playing. I'm probably playing the weirdness of that phone call up a little bit too much. I mean, I thought it was like Publishers Clearinghouse. You know what I mean? Like it's like you ever heard somebody they got good news for you, and you could tell that it's like bated anticipation. Like it didn't sound like a get out phone call.
Okay,
It sounded like
Okay, thank you. That helps
yeah.
a little bit
It
because I
sounded
was
like,
I was
yo.
like, wouldn't you be a little scared? Like I would
Nah,
just
I
be a
was
little
like-
freaked, but like maybe
And
that
everybody
was just me.
everybody listens to the police. I mean, not everybody, but I think that like our willingness to obey exceeds our. That's all grifters. All grifters succeed because of the general willingness to obey that people have. I mean, that's why grifters succeed at such a high rate. You'd be like, well, really, why do you keep getting emails from like whatever country where somebody's like, I've lost my purse? It's because it's just like a real willingness for people to believe the most ridiculous. I got a phone call from somebody the other day saying, "We're sorry, but contraband has been seized off the coast of Maine and has apparently been shipped by you." And I was like, "Are you serious?" And I just hang up. But it's like
I get
grifters
these-
are going to grift.
I've been getting yes, you're correct. Not to make this to minimize that, but like you're right. There are always going to be grifters. I have been getting a series. I don't know what it is. It must be something like coordinated, but like the same message from different numbers that is like there is an FBI warrant out for your arrest. If you do not
There is, Kate.
yeah, maybe. But like they're like, I'm like,
That's
the FBI
Facebook.
would not be fucking calling my phone and leaving a message in this generic voice if this was
So I was involved inadvertently in the back end of a weird ass grift. So this was a few years ago now. I get a text or a Facebook message from an elderly woman who says, "You don't know me, and if you're really in love with my sister, then I'll back off and I apologize, but I just have this feeling that it's not really you." And she tells me,
doesn't that just like beg for you to explain that it
Yo.
isn't really you? Like that's like
Hey, look, that shit sounds like such a compelling opening line that I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to know what happens next.
yeah. So what happened was she explained to me that somebody claiming to be me, who had a Facebook profile, was her sister was courting her sister basically, and he was always flying off to Afghanistan to do important things for the country, and he was and she just had this feeling that it wasn't really me, and she sent me this mock Benjamin Wittes Facebook profile and some emails from an account that purported to be me, and there was a LinkedIn profile, and it was all it's a form of elder care abuse. It turns out it's like a really widespread
this is
form
huge.
of grift.
Yes.
Where
It's
people
always like older people because they're also very lonely. And so they
Yeah.
get very excited to engage with someone or think that someone cares about them and wants to engage with them. It is tragic. I actually sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ben, but I actually have very strong feelings, but I feel the same way about like really pervasive spam and pop-ups that like infiltrate your like elderly people's computers because they just do not have the savvy to like know how to click them off.
And
Like-
this woman had just lost her husband like 6 months ago. She was like, really vulnerable, and somebody was, he hadn't yet asked her for money, but it was clear like that's where it was going. And so I thanked this woman, and who we've stayed connected on Facebook ever since. I actually like her quite a bit, and I think it was pretty spunky of her to write to a total stranger just on that suspicion. And I flagged it for Facebook, and Facebook's got its problems, but the site was down in 40 minutes, and Twitter took down a profile. Like everybody, all the platforms behaved perfectly well. So I was kind of like, it was a weird incident, but
Yeah, totally.
I'm glad.
Dwayne, what's next for you?
Um, the solo show here. It's called Felon in American Washi Tale, and that's what's
when do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that like, so is that like literal, is that like, I mean, when you plan your days, like, is that what you're focusing on right now?
it's a combination of things. I meet with my director every day, so it's like 9 to 10. I work on the show. I try to do some rehearsing. Like I'm doing it at Notre Dame, and so from 4 to 5, it was a call with Notre Dame to think about how to lay it out. I just did a section of it at like some high school in New York last Friday. So imagine, I left prison and then I went to this fancy ass high school. And it's like if me and John would have went to a fancy ass high school as children, we wouldn't have ended up in prison. And we might not have ended up writers at the level we are, but we probably wouldn't have ended up in prison. And it was just this weird juxtaposition. I got there really like resenting all of the fucking kids, like, but you can't, it's like these kids. It ain't they fucking fault that they got. And my kid go to a fancy ass school too, and I go to the school, and it was the Millbrook school, and the kids were great, and they reminded me of the kids I saw. They're just kids, and I kicked it with them for a bit, and I did a portion of the show, and like young people remind you though, like how if you catch them off guard, they'll be earnest in ways that you don't really expect. But anyway, the show is talking to wardens. I mean, I just got an email from the warden of Angola. Like, what the fuck, what I mean? And he cool as shit. Like, I mean, in a way, like I'm not, whatever. Prisons are prisons, but to be on a call with the warden of Angola and to have him understand that like architectural design software and spend 20 minutes helping to design a library in his space. And we're like, I'm like, why the fuck is everybody going to act like this is normal? Let me ask a question. Yo, how you know how to do that? Oh, my dad was an architect. And you realize that like all of these spaces contain people who have so much or something sometimes in themselves that get like subdued and down pressed because of the environment. But anyway, day to day, I'm spending a lot of time trying to coordinate, talking to wardens, talking to fabricators. Mass Design has been great partners. I spend a lot of time on the phone with them. And really with this whole army of people who largely have been working as like volunteers who just love the idea of like changing the landscape of prison, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's so great. We'll schedule you in for something. I mean, if we can help. I mean, it is live and it is real, but like there is a large intermediary between the dream that you had last night and the level of privacy you have for that and your language of dreaming, and the privacy that you have by like going on stage in Notre Dame. And I feel like In Lieu of Fun fits somewhere in there in terms of like the level of privacy and publicity. And like, it's not like going on, it's not off Broadway. It's not off. It's definitely not on Broadway, but yeah.
It's trans Broadway.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. For real. And the cool thing about it, I'll have a better camera. I'll have lights that work. And what's nice though, is that, it's the whole idea of poetry. How do you make poetry matter? I don't know if the people who watch him who in front of poets, I know they're really educated. I know they're smart. I know they've seen Christmas Story, but it's a real challenge for me as a like a performer to be like, yo, do you give a fuck about this? And I think that's what theater does. That sometimes audiences that come to poetry love poetry. When you do theater, you could get anybody in the room. And I think I take this as a challenge. I think the piece is dope, but now I get to show it to y'all and hear y'all tell me like, yo, that was cool. Or you know what? Just stick to the poems that stick to building libraries.
No.
So we will get that scheduled. Let's schedule it a few weeks in advance, so we have time to promote it and stuff.
Definitely.
But let's get that on the calendar and let's make it happen. KK.
We had Britton Heller for tomorrow, who has went to Yale Law School with Dwayne and I a few years before us, but she had to move to next week. So we will be back with an unknown guest tomorrow. And that will be exactly 23 hours from now. And until then, we're not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to be in the presence of genius. Thank you
All
for
right.
coming on, friend. It's so great to see you, and I will
Yeah,
talk to you soon.
thanks for sticking with us now that you're all fancy.
Nah,
Yeah.
man, I love y'all. Y'all never said you've been in the presence of a felon. You know what I mean? Some people.
I
some
fucking
people-
say that. I'm like, but then I just seem like a white woman. I'm just like running around, like, like, yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna bye.
All right.